Hey everybody, I'm Heydn. And today I'm going to give you a little bit of my journey from where I started to service design. And I'm sure this is a familiar artifact to many of you, the good old double diamond. So where I went from politics and criminology, exploring that, narrowing around design in the form of first planning and then sustainability and architecture. So Archie, actually, I kind of resonated with your story. I think you and I have a similar background in that way. And eventually narrowing around industrial design and to service design. But in reality, it was not a double diamond, but definitely more like the squiggle. So that's a big part of design for me, is just that accumulation of knowledge as you go along. So let me start with politics and my time in college. So I've done 4 campaigns. I'm actually working on my 5th as we speak. I thought I had retired, but anyway, I did a lot of citizen lobbying. I was a legislative liaison. That photo is from a protest where that officer on horseback pushed a protester into the road to try to legitimize his arrest, and I was able to film it, which was kind of a fun, memorable event from that year. So I kind of had that full year. My head was full of politics. I wanted to do law and government, so I studied political science. I studied international relations, environmentalism in early and modern America. And with criminal justice, I studied things like the criminal justice system, community-oriented policing, restorative justice, and crime prevention through environmental design. This city here is called Wrexham. It's in Wales. It was a case study I used where they changed the lighting to reduce violent crime at night, which is really fascinating. So when I went to college, I kind of learned about systems thinking. I started to understand the levers of power, and I cut my teeth pouring through academic research. I've never been a very good reader, but I can certainly pour through some journal articles now. So when I left college, I worked at a place called the Nashville Civic Design Center, where I'm from, in Tennessee, in Nashville. And I was drawn to them because of big ideas. They had a document called the Plan of Nashville, which is all about creating community. So this photo here on the left, they had a huge series of co-design sessions with dozens and dozens and dozens of citizens over years, and they completely reimagined what the city could be. They elevated the quality of the built environment, and it was so captivating. So when I went there, I did a few things, but my main project was around schools. I did a lot of research around schools. I interviewed people in Nashville and Chattanooga and other places too. I wrote a pretty big report advocating for the construction of 2 schools in downtown. And I'm not saying I'm good, but I dabbled in 3D modeling. I taught myself for one of the school sites because I just felt motivated to do that. But I think the main thing that really stuck with me is this notion of public interest design, learning about what a charrette is, learning about co-creation, and how you can democratize design. So I got my first taste of design here, and it confirmed that I wanted it, because by this point I had realized politics wasn't for me, maybe government, not so much, but design, there's something there. And so I learned really about the power of co-designing in organizations like the Civic Design Center, Rural Studio, and Public Architecture. So I moved from Nashville to Austin, Texas, and I worked for the City of Austin Office of Sustainability. And there I helped develop a program called the Austin Green Business Leaders. Actually, researching today, I found out since then they have now hundreds of businesses that participate. It's basically a way of just accrediting your operations as being sustainable. So I helped create the scorecard, I helped promote it, and that was really, really fun. And I also worked at a place called the Goodwill Computer Works. I started as a volunteer and eventually ended up working there for a year. Probably one of the most fun jobs I've ever had in my life. Just knee deep in old tech all the time, refurbishing it, going through pallets, cleaning it up. It was awesome. And on days when I could sort RAM like this, I would film it like I was ILM and Death Star trenches, which is really fun. But I learned about how you scale an effort. So with Austin Green Business Leaders, that was a great example. How you launch something that you design, how you manage it. And then of course, with the Goodwill Computer Works, I learned about things like planned obsolescence and all that kind of fun stuff. But I alluded to architecture, and actually at this point in my life, I thought that I was going to be an architect. So I did a summer design studio. That was my first taste of studio. It was a crash course. That was my very first design, a bridge that almost immediately failed. This is my last design, which was a commuter center. Really cool stuff around lighting, positioning, final rendering. And I also did a graduate course called Public Interest Design that taught me about pro bono design. I did a lot of research, and actually that's me in the background at Public Interest Design in San Francisco, one of the organizations I mentioned earlier. But this gave me my first taste of design research. Like here, I did ethnography. I studied a conservatory of music. I loved design, I loved studio, but I realized architecture was not for me. So 2 more to go. So then I realized industrial design was that final narrowing of that second diamond. I learned things like visual design, how to model, how to render, how to whiteboard, how to diagram. I learned about the design process around research. Like this is a social life cycle assessment, how you can investigate a product, prototyping, all that fun stuff. And then of course, service design. I had many service design classes, some of which were with NCR, my employer now. So I learned about things like journey mapping and personas and all that fun stuff. So I discovered service design, and that's where I am now at NCR. So the main things I'm doing here, proving by doing, demonstrating design, a lot of evangelizing, you know, in-person trainings, all sorts of enablement, and then finally, journey-based innovation. I'm really helping to promote journey-based thinking, creating an infrastructure of journey maps across the company, and it's been really, really captivating. So in-person, remote, all that fun stuff. So I've learned a ton about workshop design, about how you realize your design and you move from concept to managing them, how to sell your design. And most of all, I learned that if you have a random background as a designer, that's even better. Not all who wander are lost, or so I've heard. So thank you.